Hey, everybody. Terrence and I want to thank you so much for all the Drinks with My Wife podcast downloads.
Thank you.
He can never give me my moments. Never. Anyway, we're glad you're enjoying it. Please be sure to share with your friends, family, and colleagues that you think will enjoy our madness as well. And don't forget to subscribe, because that gives you notifications of new episodes, which happen every week. Thanks again, and enjoy, enjoy, enjoy.
Man, I hate this shirt even more now that I'm looking at it.
Why? I love that shirt.
It's kind of like Where's Waldo, but kind of lame. Like, if my mother has put me in this shirt as a kid, I would have been real fucking pissed.
It's very Garanimals.
It is. Oh, man, remember Garanimals? Anyway.
When you were a kid?
Yes.
It's so silly. Like, people didn't know how to coordinate things, so you had to have
the giraffe.
Freaking tags on it that let you know
exactly.
If you want a giraffe shirt, you should get a giraffe pair of shorts.
But you all didn't, there's no boys in your family. So did you have, did they have tough skins for girls?
I have no idea what that is.
Oh my God. Tough skins were those jeans made by Sears that are not biodegradable. Like, they are filling up places right now.
I thought Sears only did like Wranglers.
No, this is pre-Wranglers. They had little knee pads in the beginning of them on
What?
the inside.
What was going on with those pants?
What was happening at your elementary school?
What were people doing? What were kids doing?
If you wore tough skins, hit me up.
Was this parochial school?
You're a jerk. No, seriously. Tough skins. They were those indestructible jeans.
I've never heard of them
Like,
in my
literally,
life.
you could stand them up in the corner. Like, tough skins was no joke.
Because they were really like rigid denim.
Tough skins.
That's
which
funny.
it does sound like they should be like sponsoring like gay porn. Like, seriously, like it's like so custom made for it.
Maybe they did.
But they had
Maybe
the little
they did.
pad on it. Not a full pad. It was just like a sliver of something. Yeah, they're
I've
the
never
most,
heard of it.
They
I've
came
never
in
heard of it.
colors like soda pop that was red and like not soda pop. They had anyway. Tough skins.
That's really funny.
We're gonna have to Google that.
I wonder
when
if
we're
they
done.
still make tough skins.
No. I'm sure they have cut them into shreds and made tents out of those motherfuckers because they did not break down. They never got softer.
They're
got
making
softer.
billboards out of those.
Exactly.
What was your favorite gift as a kid that you received?
My favorite gift as a kid. I wasn't a kid. Oh wait, no.
Wait, what?
I was thinking of a gift. You know what?
I was going to say, we've all been kids, hopefully.
My dad got me a big wheel when I was in Fort Wayne. Whenever I was a little kid, my parents had divorced. We went back to Evansville, and I was complaining. I was about to say whining. I was always a complainer. I never whined, but I would fucking complain about the world.
It's funny.
I was like, and I ain't got a big wheel in this motherfucker.
You've picked up the whining pretty well, though.
But yeah, he got me a big wheel when we went back to visit one summer, and man, I rocked the
Were
hell
you
out of that.
surprised?
No, because he was going to get it. It was not for it to be a surprise. It was
Oh,
just
so
like,
you knew he was going to get it for you.
my dad, we weren't spoiled, but it definitely was a bit of the Disneyland dad thing where when we went back, especially those first early summers. I mean, shit, I started when I was 6, 7 years old. So he bought us things and we ate pizza. I mean, we went there one year for only 3 weeks one summer. And man, we went out to dinner, not out to dinner. We ate out every night.
For every meal or just dinner?
Well, no, my dad would cook like breakfast and stuff like that. But my dad was a delivery driver. So he left at the crack of dawn.
Ah, I see.
Man, we would get up and we'd have pizza and we'd have friends over, people staying the night. And man, my mom did not play that shit. Like I remember like the next summer it was different. And she's like, I had a word with your daddy. Like, cause man, he spoiled us. But that was I remember that summer where he bought me a big wheel and I thought it was the best thing.
Did your parents spoil you when they were together?
No. I mean, well, my parents divorced very young, so that would probably be a better question for my oldest brother, who's 10 years older, so he can say yes, he was fucking spoiled. But
says you.
we were.
Let's hear his side.
Me and my middle brother were not. There was not enough money coming in monthly for us to be spoiled. My mother was like, "I'll spoil you with food and heat."
Did you recognize that though as a kid? Like you just said, there was not enough money coming in. Like, as a child, did you recognize that? Did you recognize there was not enough, or is it now that you're older that you kind of recognize it?
It was. I can tell you exactly when it was, but no, I did not recognize that growing up. I didn't. It's that line I say all the time, but I love it, Zora Neale Hurston, when she says, "I never forget the day I found out I was colored." I remember when I found out we were poor. When I changed elementary schools, and we had moved, and we ended up going to a different school, and there was a lot more white kids there. There were white kids in my previous elementary school, but they were poor. So it was interesting to go somewhere where they were middle class, and you could see their behaviors. And like a good friend of mine, David, I never forget, we were playing soccer that first day. First of all, I'm black from an inner city. What the hell I know about soccer? There was a ball out there. I was chasing to get around, but I looked like a rock star.
That's funny.
But I never forget seeing him. He's wearing like an Izod shirt, and he's just sweating like crazy. And all I could think was, holy shit, I cannot believe he's playing in his good clothes. And it's not until I was around, David and I became friends, where I recognized they don't have good clothes. They just have clothes.
They have nice clothes that they wear all the time.
All the time. Whereas
Interesting.
First day of school at that school, I was dressed up. So I was, I was wearing my first day of school clothes. Where that was one of those moments where I recognized that we did not have what they had. But the thing about it is, I was living in an all black neighborhood. So and people around me had the same economics. It's not till you venture outside that where I think you get exposed to it. But I had no concept of it.
But because for me, there's a difference between they have more than you. Doesn't necessarily mean they're wealthier than you, quite frankly. But what I guess you said you were poor growing up. Like what do you mean by that? Because, and the reason why I asked that question is because I think, like, obviously your mom, you've always talked about your mom worked several different jobs. Yeah. You always had food on the table. Yeah, you lived in a home. Yep. And so, but what was it about your dynamics that made you recognize that you weren't living the same kind of life as somebody that did have money? Like, what was that pivot point? And do you know what I do?
I do. I mean, I definitely think the clothing thing was an example. We also moved a lot, and one of the reasons we thought, I never thought about us being poor is because we didn't live in the projects. Like, look how low that line is for economic solvency. Like, we ain't live in the projects.
But there are those degrees.
There are those degrees because we used to joke like we were fucking project adjacent. Like, I moved 9 times in 11 years growing up.
Wow.
Yeah. So that alone. But again, never felt like I did without. But the older I got, I think that's the more you got exposed to having differences. But again, and it wasn't until high school that I moved to an area that was where there were so many less black people around, and being black plays a big part because even those black people who had 2 working parents and were working class and doing well for themselves, and my mother's raising 3 boys, whenever you live in a community that's all one ethnicity, especially with black people, I can only speak to that. Even the people who got a little bit of money don't think they're better than the people who got no money. Like, we're all in that shit together. So I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I've been to Evansville. I've been to where you grew up.
Tread lightly, man. Don't piss on my hometown.
And it is there is a clear line between the haves and the have-nots. It's like
it's a train track.
It's literally a train track.
That's
That's really no joke.
Next to 41.
And it's a little bit like, in The Wizard of Oz when she goes from black and white to color, like the house lands, she opens the door and it's all this like brilliant, multicolored kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's how it felt. It felt like, and it's truly disgusting that when you cross over the train tracks,
Highway 41,
all of a sudden it was like the yards are lush and the homes are big. And so for me, it seems like where you grew up, it would be really clear who has money and who does not.
No, but not so much, because the other thing is that, I grew up, hold on, I'm like 5 steps ahead. I get to shucking and jiving. But the thing about it is, even being poor, you took care of your shit. Mm-hmm. So even though one of my best friends grew up in the projects, and he literally lived with his grandmother, and he slept in a fold-out bed in the front room. I came, even in high school, this was all through high school. I came over to pick him up, or I rolled over there when we were kids. What does he do? Got up, flipped up that bed, made the couch, put the pillows back,
Right.
made sure everything was straight. Like, you took care of your stuff. So the version that you saw of Evansville was a lot more dramatic. But growing up, you took care of your stuff.
There was still pride in the things that you did.
Well,
You might not own a lot, but you took pride in the things that
Exactly.
you
It was
did
like, it's
own.
my home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you didn't get to, like, I never thought that we could be better. There was never a moment where I thought, damn, I wish I were that. You know what I
Right.
mean? I never, there was
Interesting.
never any envy, especially when I'm thinking about, especially being very young. Now, I didn't even think about that concept until, I remember when I was in college, especially my sophomore year, like all the white kids were going to fucking spring break. And I was like, I'm fucking working. Like, American Eagle is open, I'm working.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, damn, you look around campus, like the only people you're seeing near or around campus were black. And it's
Yeah.
like, damn, you know, and I remember joking with a friend of mine, Rod, and he's like, yo, they live in they being white people, live in a different fucking world. They're
Interesting.
going to Cancun, which I had no idea where the hell that was anyway. It's not like I could go if I wanted. I'd be like, yeah, I'll be in Cancun next week. I got no fucking clue.
That's okay. They probably got the clap while they were there.
But that was the thing. Like, you don't, for the most part, and even throughout all the places we've lived, I've always liked being surrounded by people of a certain kind of makeup and similar economic backgrounds. So there was never a want for me, but there
Right.
definitely became an awareness as I got older. When I'll never forget, something happened with my mother's taxes. I had to help her with her taxes once. I think it was like a sophomore in college. And when I saw what my mother made, I was like, holy shit. Like, how did you feed people with this?
Yeah.
Like, maybe she was tricking on the side. Because it was like, there's no way you should be able to pay.
You're going to hell for
food.
saying that.
I'm going to hell for a list of reasons. Making a slide joke about my mama ain't going to be the first one.
I'll see you there.
Seriously. But no, I just didn't. That was an interesting question. I don't really think about awareness. Let me ask you this. You all, what would you consider you all when you were growing up? Like middle class?
Well, I think if I reflect on it now, I would maybe call it that, maybe, but definitely working class. I mean, both my parents worked and they weren't college educated. So,
Right.
I mean, my dad owned his own business though, but,
And your mom worked in a school.
and my mom
Well,
worked in a
cafeteria,
school.
so it's
They
not like-
weren't professionals. They weren't, attorneys or doctors
Mm-hmm.
or, quite frankly, even accountants
Right.
or
Yeah.
something
Whatever those
professional in a
economic levels.
corporate environment. But we definitely never wanted for anything.
Mm-hmm.
We were definitely that family that you took a vacation a year for sure. And we were, as I've talked about before, we were very, very fortunate. Every other
Mm-hmm.
summer, we went to Italy for 6 weeks. But I think because my entire neighborhood was that way, was this kind of working class group of people. They were people just like my parents.
Right.
And so I had no real frame of reference until I got a little bit older, maybe 13, 14, whatever it was, and I would go to a friend's house. And if that friend's house was, we lived in a ranch, right? And
Okay.
so if that friend's house was like
Split level
a
shit. Yeah.
split level or a 2-level home.
Y'all got a swimming pool? What the fuck?
Yeah, it felt really like, wow. But the interesting thing is I never looked at it as though, wow, you guys must have money. I never looked at it that way. For me, it felt more like, it felt really modern.
Yeah. Yes.
It felt modern. It felt like, God, because, I mean, again, we talked about this in a previous episode, right? First gen. My parents were immigrants. They were old fashioned. I felt like I was living in
They
a
were a
slice
little
of
older.
Italy within Trumbull, Connecticut. And so if I went to someone's home and they had this kind of
This stuff,
modern
right.
home, right? It just felt modern and young. And I don't know. It was really kind of different.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I will say this though. The one thing that I do, and by the way, I never felt like going to Italy every other year for 6 weeks was extravagant.
No.
It wasn't until I got older and I would share that experience with someone, they were like, man, that must be nice.
Yeah.
And then of course, as you get older and you start to recognize how lucky you are and fortunate you've been.
But that's not just economics. That's also European. Or no. That's also non-American. People, that's the one thing I learned living in New York. People who are from another country travel back to that country every year if they can.
Yeah, if they can.
If they can. They go back.
But I never recognized as being that as being fortunate in the way that they saw that.
Right.
But I did have a friend throughout junior high and high school, and I'll never forget her and her family. And she had an older sibling and her parents. They would go like to somewhere in the Caribbean every year, and that seemed really exotic to me. Like, oh shit, honey, you get to go do that, right? And they were this kind of family where like they did sporting activities together too, right? So it was like, yeah. So in any event, I guess all of that is to say, I didn't evaluate my family situation in terms of any kind of wealth or non-wealth. I never felt like we were poor. I never felt like we were rich, but I also didn't attach the label of middle class to it either. I just didn't.
Well, it wasn't. And maybe that's the thing. I think now is so forefront. Like that's why I could imagine being a young person being on Instagram. You're gonna know who's got what and what you ain't got.
That's the unfortunate thing.
But let me ask you this: like within your family dynamic. Like, because all your family's back in Italy. I mean, I guess you do. Your mother has some cousins and shit in the Bronx. But was there ever are there economic levels within your family where you can go, that cousin's doing well, or my mom's cousin's doing well, and then there's another cousin who's fucking struggling? Because my families are so big, especially one side of them. There's a lot of economic disparity within there where you can go, so-and-so's doing good. They're not rich. I don't have any rich people that I'm aware of right now unless you're evading taxes. But I have cousins.
But if you're out there.
Send your cousin a check. But no, that thing, like there was not a huge variation within our economics. Did you all have that?
I don't believe so. Again, I don't believe so. And I say I don't believe so because you're right. All of our family was in Italy. And I didn't feel like, even though their life was in Italy, it was much different than ours. And I think a part of that is just because we lived a very simple life, quite frankly. And so did they, right? They didn't have these extravagant homes or do these extravagant things. They were just they were working hard and leading a very simple life. But I think let me ask you this. Given that...
Are you about to ask? Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. So, given... What'd you think I was going to ask?
No.
But given that dynamic of you seeing yourself as being poor, and I don't want to position it as though you weren't. I'm just saying this is how you saw yourself as poor. Do you feel like that shaped how you dealt with finances once you got old enough to be dealing with finances? Like once you started working, and I know you started working very young and making money, and you paid for school and things like that, but how did your upbringing shape how you handled your own finances?
Damn, that is
profound, right?
I feel like I need to lay down on the couch to respond to this shit.
I'm really brilliant.
Because your humility continues to shine through. I don't think I even recognized. No, I know exactly when I recognize how my upbringing had impacted me is whenever I decided that I was going to, when my ex-wife and I were trying to get money in order. My ex-wife comes from a middle-class family. I did not. And so, her knowledge about savings and things of that nature, she knew. Whereas for me, I come from a family that was robbing Peter to pay Paul. So that's when you shift money around to do this. And there was never any long-term plan. There was never any there was no concept that one day I'm going to need a savings account. And a savings account was to make sure in case I wrote a check and that shit bounced, they didn't fucking charge me. Like, that's what it was. And so I think it was in my mid 20s whenever I was like, holy shit, like I don't know anything about it. And the older I've gotten, the more perplexing it comes, because now you can look back and you can go, man, if you were raised with money, and by the way, I'm not talking about riches, but if you were raised just around money, it's such a leg up in the world.
Yeah.
It is such a leg up. When the first home you buy is because your parents are able to give you a down payment, you're done. I mean, you're so much more set up than the person who literally is saving 10 to 15% of their every check they have for years so they can get that down payment.
Yeah.
And they're, or, never being able to reach out to my mother for rescue, like never being able to go, you know what, that Discover card I got in college, apparently I got to pay that motherfucker down when I'm 30. You know what I mean? Like, so,
that's funny.
That's whenever you begin to look back. And I don't look back on it with any level of shame or anger, but you're able to look back and go, man, if you had money, it is a step forward in this world, and anyone who acts like it's not, that Horatio Alger pull up by your own bootstraps, that is a lie being sold to the masses, man.
But I also think, because one of the things as you're talking, and I'm recognizing even about my own response, is that everyone that I knew, even if they had more, worked really hard for it. I didn't live around anybody who inherited anything. Everybody worked for it, right?
That makes sense.
It wasn't until I got much older that I started to meet those type of people, right? When I went off to college and I met those type of people who were inheriting money, old money.
Like they used to own slave money.
I think maybe.
Like real money.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't talk about it, but I think, But, and so I think that shaped my own views on money, quite frankly, because I started, I had a paper route when I was 11 years old, and then I went and babysat, and then I started working a job when I was 15 years old, and then from the time I was 16, I was working.
Right.
And because there was this recognition that you work for the things that you want, nothing will be handed to you. The one thing I will say, though, that my parents didn't, first of all, they didn't talk a lot about money, which quite frankly, I think was probably a bit of a mistake.
It's 100% a mistake.
Yeah.
That we've tried to rectify by telling our kids we're broke.
Funny.
No, we're not going out to dinner, motherfucker.
Yeah. But they didn't talk about money. And there was also no talk about, it wasn't necessarily, there was no talk about how to save money, but they were very much a cash couple, meaning they didn't buy anything on credit. And if they did buy it on credit, they paid that bill in full by the end of the month. And that, quite frankly, that's just not a real, in modern times, it's just not a realistic way of doing things. It's just not. There also was not a real, and my parents did things like they invested, right? But they bought land because that's the thing that you did.
Yes. It's so generational, which is also super smart.
Right. And, and if they had stocks or whatever, they never really talked about it.
Right.
Did they invest in it? Yes, absolutely. They did, but they never really talked about it. Right. They never really educated on those types of things. And I think that absolutely shaped my own views on money as well.
Yeah, it has to. I think about, going off what I know now, knowing what I know now, and I have two older brothers. Knowing what I know now, first of all, our conversations that we have with our kids are very different about money and credit and how that impacts your life.
Spending.
Yes. But I think about what I know now, like the things that I would want to say to a kid. Like let's say we had 3 boys, I'd be like, look, when you graduate, I'm going to loan you this. I don't care I want you to buy something of value. And then you can do it with your brothers. Like, you all should have one house.
You would only do that if we had boys?
No, you do it with the girls too. Shit. Come on. No.
No, you dug yourself a hole.
I was using my own life as an example.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. That's okay. You dug yourself out. I never Nice save.
Look, all I'm saying is the idea of how you can use one another to support one another. And I don't think I think there was a belief system that we recognize as bullshit now, that if you work hard, you're going to make money and you will be okay. You go to, I come from that. Go to high school, you're going to go to college,
right?
And you're going to do
your future's set.
Oh, you're done.
Your future's set if you go to college.
You're done, and you don't even realize like holy shit, I graduated with damn $80,000 worth of debt. I'm already behind the 8 ball. As opposed to saying, these are things that you could do to help structure your future. Mm-hmm. And even though you're young and you don't see it just yet, it's damn huge.
Yeah.
I think about the times that we've sat down with our son and had conversations about savings and economics. Never had those talks with my parents.
Oh, me neither, really.
Never had that talk. And I don't, even if, and the thing about it is, I don't think you need to have money to have that discussion. I think you just need to have experience and just be able to go, look, man, if I had to do it, we had that conversation with the daughter. If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't be taking out a bunch of damn loans to go to college.
Yep.
Because I'm going to graduate, I'm going to owe more money to the U.S. government than I am going to make.
For the next 20 years.
Seriously. Think about that pothole in my lawn. So it's just like, it does, I think it does shape you, and the thing that you were saying along those lines about how it shapes you, it's not that I've never thought about my future. What has been the way economics is actually, the way I grew up has shaped me, and my mindset is that as long as my mother's thing was always, as long as you're fed and there's a roof over your head and we got each other, we're good.
Right.
Which is a great adage, but you know what? It is actually really fucking dope because I'm never worried.
Yep.
We got love. We got friends. I'm like, oh man, we good. Rent paid.
We got booze.
Yeah, exactly.
We're good.
The rent's is due on the 15th. Shit, mail that check on the 15th. Like, you know what I mean? Like that idea that what's most important, because I think it's so easy to look back. I never think about myself as growing up poor or less or having less. Because when I reflect on my youth, I think about what we did have, and if we had those things, we were golden. And that's kind of that's not kind of the way. That's the way we approach it now.
Right.
Where we just go, man, we're good. We'll be fine.
100%. I totally agree.
Right.
Awesome.
Man, let me tell you, if you grew up,
this time has flown.
It is blazing by. If you grew up poor, broke, rich, whatever, how did your economic situation growing up affect your current life? Mm-hmm. Because to me, that is the most fascinating shit. And that's a great question. The most fascinating shit in the world, because it does influence you.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we want to say bye now. That's it. That's all we want to do.
That's
say
how rich
goodbye.
People say bye.
Toodles.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining Drinks with My Wife. Please be sure to click the subscribe button and rate us on Apple Podcast and Spotify.